Hello, today is March 27th, 2019. This is the kubeadm office hours. If you haven't done so already, please add your deets to the meeting minutes. I'm going to share my screen here in just 1 second and we can walk through the agenda. All right, hopefully folks can see my screen. Yes, no, maybe so?
Yes.
All right, 1 second, let me turn up my mic. All right, so first up, PR 75600. How to manage join when cluster status contains not responsive etcd endpoints. I think I saw this issue fly by. Is Fabrizio on the call?
I don't think he is yet.
Okay. We can always loop back to it.
So this is, I think this is a pretty good fix. I do not know. I think we are actually, no, this is a different one. We still have to decide what to do with this PR. It's like a good proposal, but Fabrizio had some concerns. And also I had some concerns about the import packages. It imports the RPC types directly. And we are one of the few places that is doing that.
One second here. So we're trying to figure out the listing of members here.
Mm-hmm.
Can't we use, doesn't the status from the API server for the etcd endpoints indirectly give us this health of the members anyways?
I'm not sure. Probably not.
I'm pretty sure it does. It does a direct reach through.
Yeah, I think we should. Well,
So,
it depends on the version of etcd, and even more so, it depends on the version of the etcd client, whether or not you have it available directly through the client or you have to go through the REST interface.
I'm about, I don't know if I'll go that high, maybe like 60% certain-ish that the status reach through for etcd directly talks, the endpoint for the API server directly reaches through and talks to the etcd members against the client, the correct client version. So I'll take a look at this one today and I'll verify that. How's that sound?
Sounds good. Ideally, we should have had Fabrizio here to talk about this. I just read his comment. He likes the idea, but he's not sure, I think, about merging this.
I'll take a look. All right. Next one up. Upgrade plan doesn't currently work.
So on the related to the first agenda item, we have something that I think is related. Currently trying to sync the endpoints on during upgrade plan. I think this is a residue from, I linked the ticket in there. I think this is a residue of a 112 cluster that the user then upgraded to 113. And all of the endpoints he has in the etcd YAML, everything is localhost instead of the local networking address. Basically, yeah, this is the related ticket. I tried the plan today, and plan tells me that my cluster version is 113.5. kubeadm is version 1.14, and awesome, you are up to date, and it's yes. So I have to look why this is happening. I honestly do not know when did we break this.
All right. This is definitely cherry pick worthy.
Mhm. The upgrade itself works. I tried upgrading immediately after that. It's just the planning phase is somehow broken.
Okay. That's good to know. We have bugs for software. Who knew? The one thing that'd be interesting to denote would be to understand the test coverage that's missing here, like how it slipped through the gauntlet.
Mhm. So this is something we are currently discussing with Fabrizio, and it's a lengthy topic. The document is still private because we don't want to bother everyone with our ramblings. There's a lot of noise in the document. We don't have a solid proposal, but we like a PSA here is that we started already planning on how to test stuff like that. And hopefully, like my idea is to have a finished plan by the end of the first month of the cycle, something like that, like optimistically. Possibly with some implementations ready to use.
Okay.
I wanted to, we also have a separate discussion with kind versus kinder. And the Monday meeting, with respects to kind, we basically discussed that we possibly the phases are not sufficient in kind for us because we won't be able to test things like that. Upgrades are completely out of scope in kind for the time being.
If you had phases, you stop at a phase and then you do everything out of band. Now you could wrap all that behavior in kinder if you wanted to, or you could do it via scripts. That was the expected current strategy. So the current strategy or the current thought process that I had was phases gets you not all the way there, but you can do what you need to do for an upgrade by stopping before you actually do the deployment or before you do the upgrade process and do it manually. Now, if we want to wrap that behavior in kinder, that seems totally fine. What more were you thinking there? Because I know that phases wouldn't solve the problem like entirely for upgrades, especially.
So Ben put the phases in a pretty high priority, but like it's entangled in testing for us. Well, how do we execute our upgrade testing? Basically situation. If we use the kube test deployer that is currently bound to kind, we really cannot do much. So my idea was to pretty much execute a bash script from a prow job, which is going to act like an entry point directly into kinder as a front end. And from there, me and Fabrizio are currently working on a solution that is going to support some sort of a config. The config can have multiple testing stages that we want to run, like possibly upgrade, then test, then test the kubeadm specific end-to-end test that we have in a separate package, you know.
That seems fine to me. I would definitely not recommend getting entangled within their auto builder test stuff. You know, if you even need to, you could even support federated testing, right? And just kick it via totally separate means. It's up to you, or whoever wants to work on the test infra pieces. But that's a conflating constraint, right? That's like they've buried the bodies in the specific area, and you need to get around it. But that's a test infra problem. We could also, there's another strategy we could employ there too, and we could push hard on getting cluster API automation as a blocking release signal. I think we might conflate a bunch of problems for things like Kappa if we were to, make it automatically test the tip of everything, right? You might get some conflating problems and other signals raised there, which might not be a bad thing if we wanted to do that.
Yeah, basically by rule of thumb for 115 and like possibly in the future cycles is that we might want to bypass kube test completely. This means kubeadm testing and possibly like in the future cluster API testing as well, because it's very limiting. It does not serve us well for what we want to do. And the way to, yeah.
I built Sonobuoy for a reason, man.
Mm-hmm.
It probably makes a ton more sense now that you've walked through that landscape.
Yes.
There's no reason, especially if you give a SHA to the latest versions of Sonobuoy with 1.14, if we put requirements on there, for not to, it can just give you signal as the output. Then you take that signal and you use federated testing to just put the results in a GCS bucket. It's up to us. There's many ways to slice this one, but I would not kill yourself over trying to make I don't know, make something that's so rigid, try to bend in ways that it was never designed.
Yeah. Also, possibly the discussion with Ben and Fabrizio from Monday, like, gravitated around the fact that we share the same backend, kind and kinder. And if we decide to push on a new feature, we can always get it upstream. So I don't see the fragmentation problem in terms of backend. In terms of front end, kind is very limited for us. And Fabrizio turned kinder into a Swiss Army knife. So I think in 1.15 we can try kinder and see how it goes.
That seems fair to me. And you know, we should constantly be pushing on Ben over time. The problem I currently see with upgrades are a weird thing. In kind, I'm not going to lie. It's super useful for us, but from an end user perspective, it's a little weird, right? From a kubeadm developer's perspective, it's like, oh yeah, we want this yesterday, because it makes our test automation that much easier. So I think we're going to get there. I think it's just going to be social foo for a while. If we get phases, that's one step in the right direction. They're moving in that direction. And I think as we start to decrease the level of macro commands that we have atop of the phases that we need to do to execute an upgrade, we can eventually push that itself into maybe an experimental phase. You know, the benefit of having kubeadm as a precedent, and this was my thought process as well, the benefit of having kubeadm as a precedent is that we have things like alpha phases, right? So if we wanted to have an alpha phase upgrade, if it's clearly demarcated as alpha phase, right? There's no reason why we couldn't do that. If we had phases, we could do A, then B, then alpha phase, right?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense to get this upstream. Definitely, I agree. Ben is also constrained on how much he can work on kind, and basically it's going to take a while. But given the process we planned for 1.15, we are time constrained, and I think that me and Fabrizio should just push to get something out and think later of how to get things back into kind.
Yep. So we can sync on that one. This was this issue, right?
I'm going to test it after the meeting, pretty much,
Okay.
to see where the problem is.
If you eventually get to the point where you say, forget it all, just do federated testing, that's a totally legitimate thing too. So don't feel constrained by the current environment. If you need to get around it, do whatever you need to do. But I wouldn't devote time and energy towards fixing test infra itself, right? Fixing our signal makes a ton of sense. Fixing test infra it's not really, unless it benefits the broader group, the ROI there is not clear to me, right?
Yeah, we're going to see. Also, Ben mentioned that kubetest 2 is a bit on hold at the moment, so because somebody else in Google is going to work on it, and yeah, we also blocked on this. People are busy, basically.
Yeah.
The next topic is again from me. It's so long story short, we pushed the CNI upgrade to become 0.75. This is the Kubernetes-CNI package, and it's broke not the latest tip of the any release branch packages, but the older packages, like for instance 113.2 is now broken because of this. We are entering the land of package manager semantics. Like aptitude handles this in one way, YAM handles it in a different way. Andy yesterday responded to me that the version pinning in aptitude is questionable. It doesn't work always, or maybe it's because the Kubernetes CNI package is still at not a major version.
There's a fundamental problem in the package release process, which is that when we update the release repository, we update them for all, and that doesn't make any sense. It's just an artifact of what we've done. And prioritize it. Is it still broken right now?
Yes, and I joined the SIG release meeting yesterday about that. So.
So like we can't. Is it because there are? Where is it broken?
So the exact output is that it tries to install 0.75, but the package is pinned to 0.60. I think you can see it later in the output.
You could say just greater than or equal to in the spec file.
Yeah, but we have to repush new revisions of the packages in that way.
Yes.
And basically, Caleb yesterday was suggesting that we probably should override the old packages because we are essentially pushing a security fix because of the CVE fix, in 7.5.
Yes.
Tim Pepper disagreed with that, and he said that we should probably go with the revisions instead.
Well, then you're going to have a broken revision forever.
Yes, one of the primary revision is going to be broken.
So I think the revision is the right model, because if you don't, then somebody who's running the pre-existing version won't get the update.
Yes. And also it's the right thing to do in terms of what Linux distributions are doing.
It does make sense to do the minor version. I do think it's a little bit weird and cryptic. This is part of the reason why, this is one of the many reasons why Hannes's proposal exists, and why both Hannek and Merrick's proposals together are P0 for this release. It should be super clear now to everybody that this needs to be fixed for obvious reasons. We would not have this problem had those two proposals been implemented in 1.14.
There's also another problem. Like if we, again, my discussion with Andy from yesterday, if we pin the version of the CNI in the kubelet spec, for instance, to more than equals certain version, this means that we are going to always pick the latest CNI package, and we might face a scenario in the future where a new CNI package is not compatible with the old version of Kubernetes.
That's entirely possible, but the problem is we version all of the packages together as a thunk. And if a person somehow pre-installs a different version of a CNI ahead of doing all the other YUM updates, that's kind of a pathological condition, right? It's possible that they could do this, but part of the disabling auto updates, which is part of our installation documentation, is to prevent people from blasting their own foot off. So they have to turn on the repo explicitly in order for them to do the update. And we tell them to turn on and update all. We don't tell them to turn on and update one. So I hear what you're saying, but the instructions would, I don't see how a user could do that unless they went off the beaten path.
Yeah, there's another problem, which is a pretty big one, related to our dependency chain. We currently, the kubeadm package depends on the kubelet, and many people yesterday expressed the concern that this is a problem. We should stop depending like that, because this, by the way, breaks upgrades, because you have to hold the kubelet version when you upgrade the kubeadm package because of
That's a separate issue. I do know that, but that's a different thing. That's been a long-standing issue for a long time. That was the one that Craig Tracy filed a long time ago, and there's another one around that too as well, I believe.
Should we be fixing this as well in the efforts in this cycle?
Yes, we should. I'm for better or for worse. I woefully admit that I am a legacy packager person. I don't really want to step on that hand grenade, but I think the priority of this is so high, and we've come across so many terrible issues that I need to do this. So I'm going to prioritize this for this cycle.
We also opened the occasionally occurring discussion of not using packages at all. And
yes, we have. I mean, that's in my ideal world. That's what I want, right?
Mm-hmm. I can tell you, summarize what people said from yesterday, starting from the secret release people. So Caleb said that we shouldn't build packages, leave it to the distros, delegate the work to the distros, but we should instead build images with like the popular distros. This is what he suggested.
That's what I said I wanted. I wanted I call it the meta container. Right, and the meta container basically has the packaging details to install on a environment, right?
This was more of a we ship multiple images for Fedora, for Ubuntu. This was more of a generic idea. Like your proposal is close to the one that Andy did, and he said that we should have this meta container that installs the binaries locally. But then we face the question, like, how about all the kubelet dependencies that depend on glibc? How are we going to install them on the host? We have to execute the local package manager. And that was the other proposal. And my personal proposal, which is a bit drastic, is to basically completely nuke the packages and do documentation the same way we do for container Linux. This is to download binaries and download the unit file for the systemd, and basically it's kind of manual. It's just
that's too high of a bar. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but the bar is too high for average people. The whole reason why kubeadm got traction is because we lowered the bar and made it easy for everyone. And that's like the fundamental premise behind a lot of the things in kubeadm, is that make it easy for everyone, democratize and commoditize the installation process. I think we need to find a balance in an off-road here. I do think that long-term maintenance of these packages, it's become a problem because we did everything wrong. And we never actually paid down the technical debt. If it was not a problem, if it just worked seamlessly and was turnkey and was relatively simple, and we actually built the same artifacts as part of our build process as we do as release, I doubt we'd be having this conversation. I do like the containerized bit. I've always liked that. I've made that a point, but I've always struggled with the downstream consumers and making sure that it's as easy as possible for them to consume.
But we can combine the containerized approach with like nuking all the packages. So like the container might have a script which will do exactly what CoreOS guys are doing scripted. And if we need to execute like package manager to install in additional dependencies, it's not that hard to detect. It's like yum DNF, apt, zipper, pacman. That's it. Like that's the most important ones.
Yep. I don't think we can't do both. We shouldn't do both for the time being. I loathe the maintenance of packaging for a long time. I have since the beginning of this particular project, because it's one of those things where like, who wants to volunteer for packaging? And everyone looks around and no one stands up. But the consumption model though is key to our success and always has been. because people have pre-existing ways of managing these things.
But even with packaging, we have another fundamental problem is what we don't have the repositories which is like split by the branch. So we have
that's in Hannes's proposal. That's part of what the work, but both Merrick's proposal and Hannes's proposal is meant to address. We just need to do it.
So
Yes.
I actually tacked on a thing here at the end of Lubomir's stuff to actually talk about that, because I'd like to get something out in the next couple of weeks. So.
Basically, the problem is also that SIG release are not really owning this problem. We, as a SIG cluster lifecycle, we have some sort of a responsibility to distribute kubeadm, but the packaging stuff, it's really falls on the SIG release, and they don't have engineers. That's an organizational problem. They should have engineers, but they don't.
Yes, I've been saying this for a long time. I think you're coming full circle to my realization of about like 2 years ago. So you come to the understanding of why I broke out things in test infra, and you also come to the full understanding of why we kind of do things in packaging and implement every second of it. Welcome to my world, man.
Yeah, and also, like, personally, I don't really want to maintain these packages. On a personal level, I'm not an expert in the packages. And, I just seeing the breakage from yesterday, it's very concerning. Like, we had like 20, 30 people complaining that we broke something bad. Yeah.
I know. I think this is.
If I may add, a piece of the puzzle is that, as far as I know, there is no CI signal that tests the packages.
We have CI signal, and the CI signal broke with the problem. So the CI signal caught the problem. We only have it for Debian, however. We don't have RPM because I don't even know how to properly set.
But what does the CI signal test? That the packages exist, that the packages works for upgrades?
So the signal is not super complete. We have a couple of jobs. One of them is running that Lucas created. It checks for the existence of the packages. And the second one that I created is to install all the packages and then uninstall them. We don't have a job that tests upgrades with holds and stuff like that. We don't have such a job. And also everything, like I said earlier, is Debian. We don't have RPM testing. I mean, the RPM stuff is easy to add, but the upgrades is more tricky. Do you want us to test all the possible upgrades? Like, it's a super complicated matrix to test.
I would just do latest previous release to latest next release.
Yeah.
That should be sufficient.
Okay, this is definitely something that we can add. I also wanted to mention the idea from Duffy, which is probably the most modern approach of doing installation, but you already know this option. It's to turn kubeadm as the installer of the kubelet, and basically make kubeadm download the kubelet and the dependencies. This was his idea. So in terms of like rating this one of rating.
Yep. But you still got to get kubeadm. Like it's still a container that you version, which would be kubeadm itself.
But the kubeadm is arguably the most easy to add. You just have to download the code binary from a link anywhere. Because it's portable, as long as you click the right link for your architecture.
I think the hardest part is dependency management.
Yeah, overall, I mean, I'm not a believer that the Linux package manager solved the dependency problem. but I guess we can continue with the same story.
Why don't we open an issue on this, flag it as critical, put all the relevant information inside of there that we currently have here. Let's have a bike shed conversation on the options before we start executing on it for 115.
I mean, I can create but I don't really want to repeat the same stuff. Like yesterday, we had a big discussion about this.
I can do it. I'll put the details together and link all the stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Because I'm really kind of tired of this discussion from yesterday. We had a big bike shed in the SIG release meeting, 11 p.m. my time.
We need to get them to own the artifacts.
Yes.
All right. What can we merge in master and or cherry pick to 114?
This is like a generic topic. We can move it to the last as the last agenda item. Basically, I wanted to walk the PR back.
Okay. Let's hold on. Let's put this in the back. Ross.
Yeah, this is just a reminder to folks to just go and see what the proposals for future configuration are and simply vote. We don't have enough votes for today, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one item that should go in without voting is the in V1 Beta 2 is the whatever fields we want to add related to copy of certs. I mean, it should go without voting pretty much because that's like part of the plan for the next cycle.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with this.
I think that there is an interesting topic to consider that are popping out requests about having in the config the possibility to configure components on secondary control plane node. So configure a TCD on the secondary control plane, configure controller manager API server on the secondary control plane. I think that as a SIG, we have to define the bar for this flexibility.
You mean having different parameters and arguments that are different from the mainline one?
Yes, for instance, people want to set up the bind address on each API server instance, or people want to set up the address for the monitoring port for a TCD and so on each node, on each control plane node.
Do we have a... I thought we tackled some of this. Okay. Is it spelled out in the doc?
The issue is linked to the umbrella issue. I don't remember to copy it in the doc. I can add it later.
I think the API server issue is there, but yeah, last night I saw an etcd issue too.
It's a fairly high level of customization, if you ask me, and there is already a workaround to simply, once the node has joined, you can modify the manifest and restart it. I think this is a workaround, right?
Yeah, it's kind of working, but probably we should not advise users to go and modify the static pods.
Yeah, I see it as something that is not a super high priority. I mean, that's my perspective.
Well, how about this? How about next time, next meeting, Ross? If you want to get the details curated, we can do a walkthrough of the API modifications for next call. Does that seem like a reasonable thing to do next time?
Yep.
Right, cool. Why don't we do that, and then we can bike shed then about stuff that we really actually care about versus packaging. Next up, walking through what can we merge to master or cherry pick to 114.
I wanted to ask if somebody else has something they want to add before that. If not, we can continue.
Are there any other group topics? Going once? Twice? 3 times? Okie dokie. We have 46 open PRs. I know that there's a bunch that are been held. Did you want to go through this in detail, or did you want to? What was your thought?
I wanted to see if we have some something like critical, urgent, or important soon, perhaps to escalate stuff to merge in master. We also have a bunch of PRs that are staying there for a long time. We can look at a couple of PRs from Ed Bartosz. He has some extensions to the kubeadm token command. We have stuff to discuss if you want to during the meeting, if there isn't anything else, of course.
Well, we can start going backwards. I know some of this stuff doesn't even apply, some of these old ones, because they've been around since like we first started doing the full triage upstream.
I'm not sure why the bots are not closing them. Not that I want to close them, but something is holding them.
It's not set as lifecycle frozen, so I don't exactly know why. Yeah, when it's got 67 files changed and yours is only one of them, typically the answer is it's some API modification. So usually stuff like this, we couldn't even approve if we wanted to. So why don't we focus this to be SIG cluster lifecycle too? Oh, damn it. It doesn't exclude other ones. Did anyone know the everything only this?
I do not know.
God, I hate GitHub queries so much. All right. Well, I'll just have to do a manual filter.
Try minus label colon.
Minus label?
Yeah.
Nope.
Oops. Don't mind.
It's everything or nothing. So let's just walk backwards from the bottom, because a lot of these are multiple SIGs. We couldn't even do it. So anything around SIG node usually has been like encompassing. So no, 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 definitely no. This is an API change, you can tell. No, 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 not really. No, 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 no. This one's been sitting around, looks like it needs a rebase.
I think I wanted Fabrizio to look at this. Yes, he's assigned.
Yeah, it just needs a rebase though.
Yeah, we might have scared the contributor.
It's been sitting there for a while though. I think because it's stale, it might just be closed or become closed. If they don't respond back and it needs a rebase, then there's not much we can do. We can take their PR and modify it if we need to, if we consider it a priority. Remove redundant words. This is one of those things that's probably been totally approved and it just needs a rebase. Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, I'm going to close some of these with the rebase.
Yeah, and stuff like this is not really an importance. It's kind of like the drive-by PRs.
Mhm.
You can just let, if they're already marked as lifecycle rotten, you can let it auto close, and that way you won't get any sort of flack from the community. I'd probably let that happen, to be honest, because sometimes you don't want to have you don't want to be the closer of issues and PRs.
Yeah, sure.
Needs rebase. Needs rebase has got LGTM. Needs rebase. Multiple SIGs. Multiple SIGs. Multiple SIGs. Multiple SIGs. Needs rebase. A lot of these are just basically stale and old because of the common problem is it was probably an API change of some kind or something that affects multiple approvers and it was never prioritized. Well, Dims is on the call, so let's talk about this one. Yeah, this is totally API related.
We just have to slam it in. We've done deprecation for like 3+ releases. So there is no change here. There is no specific API change as such in this.
It's just deprecation.
The implementation. Yep.
From my experience, SIG node is sufficient to block a PR for a couple of years.
You again are I should buy you a beer sometime. We can tell you stories, trade tales.
Where is Derek?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that bad, Lubomir. They just need some additional help for sure.
Yeah, they need more people,
Yeah.
definitely.
That's why I was trying to help with the CRI stuff because that's and Docker shim.
Hold, do not merge, hold.
I think this simply missed the release. It's from one of the Intel folks. Alexander, did you review this PR? Maybe he left.
I think I even put LGTM at some point on it. Maybe it changed afterwards.
Uh-huh. So it's on Fabrizio at the moment.
See what waiting for this one to land, but that's already landed.
Uh-huh. I think we are good on this one.
Hold on a second here. Why does it say open? So it was an order problem, and
yeah, but the first one what you asked, it was easy to merge without the second one. That was my last comment. So why to have that artificial dependency?
hold on. I didn't take a look at the files themselves here.
I remember this. This is with the number of attempts to try to download the version from the internet.
Yeah.
I don't, honestly, with the group here, I want to be honest, I don't even know why we have the fetching of a version as the first option. I've never seen a software that does this like that. We should default to the whatever the client version is locally, and optionally we should have the user download from the internet if they want.
I agree. That's just been the legacy of what was there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, initial legacy was what it was. The user needed to specify the version manually every time. When it was improved, what we can fetch and get the latest one.
Yes.
I think pinning to the version that you have installed makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, it's okay to download the latest patch version because we guarantee that we are not going to break this particular minor. But at the same time, I don't even know why this is done like that. So is it something that we can refactor in the future? Because these all the logic that these PRs are adding, like 5 retries and stuff, we can completely avoid this, I think, if we refactor it in a better way.
I agree. Hold on one second here. I'm going to free up this one. And we're going to not bend on this one. Do you want to add comment there?
So release version calculations. Okay.
731 or 73129. Where was I here? 73129. Too many SIGs. Too many SIGs. Needs your base. Needs your base. I'm just kind of curious here. Because if the people don't rebase their PRs, there's not a lot you can do. You can poke the PR, but sometimes it sits around. This is done on February 20th.
If it's super important and abandoned, I can take over. That's, I tend to do that.
It's not, though. I think it should be the responsibility of the contributor to make sure that if they're going to submit a patch, from some company, which is Google, that they submit a patch and follow up with it. This one looks like it can be approved. Rename run pull images check to pull control plane images. It's just a rename.
Rusty, what do you think about this? I remember that you reviewed this PR.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly the state in which it is currently, but it was quite a long story there.
It was just, I think it was a rename that we couldn't figure out if this is the right name to pick. My suggestion is going to be to close this PR because we kind of forgot about it.
I think the initial idea was to just like merge some code because the control plane images check is basically doing the same as kubeadm config images pull, and the idea was to just share some code between them.
So why are we blocking on this PR?
I have to figure out. It was probably because it missed the merge window in the last cycle.
Okay, I guess let's merge it and we can catch if there's a problem in the CI. Like I can check the CI later today.
It seems fairly straightforward to me. I like the name change, to be honest. If you're reading the code and you're relatively new to the code base, it is.
Yeah, I think we can merge it as is.
Which number is that? 74399. Update release branch. I don't think this really affects us. Refactor function in kubeconfig needs rebase.
I don't remember this one. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of unnecessary. I mean,
it just looks like code shuffle. I mean,
yeah, and I didn't like the code shuffle because I think it can be done better.
I think I like it. It's basically a couple of functions that are looking exactly the same, except for a function they're calling inside the for cycle. So having a utility function to do all of this stuff is like quite normal for me.
I just don't like passing functions as argument, because I used to write a lot of C code back in the day. I mean, I guess
I don't see a problem with it. Do you want to finish the review of this, Ross?
I think it's LGTM'd, so it probably needs just an approve.
Did you graduate to approval rights?
Yep.
All right. That one was 74483. Multiple SIGs. That looks a lot like the other one.
This is a sketchy PR because people are not sure if you want to do it.
I'm fine with punting. If SIGNet, that should be SIG networking, and we just verify and stamp what they want.
And also it affects the cluster directory as well. So if they are okay with this, I mean, we can consider it for kubeadm.
Mm-hmm. Ability to configure kubeadms, ignored pre-flight errors via configure. So we talked about this like multiple times.
So the contributor created a tracking issue in kubeadm, and I think I mentioned to him that he shouldn't have sent a PR for this immediately, because we still have planning to do in the doc that Ross created.
Okay. Do you want to add this to your list of things to go through, Ross, for next week?
Yeah, I think it may actually be in the doc, but I can't remember. Probably it is in the doc. But yeah, this is basically on a huge hold, because the new option, if it lands, it needs to land in the next config and not in the current one. And it's currently only half-baked this PR.
Are you assigned to this? You are assigned. Okay. And it's on hold, so that'll be fine. The number was 75499. Too many SIGs. Implement make test T2 kubeadm.
Fabrizio, what is the status of this? I think
Waiting for approvers.
So it's we need approvers from the hack directory, I think.
Hold on. I don't know who else is an approver besides Jeff. That still is active.
It's
Tim Hawken.
yeah. Well, I mean, the root of the test directory and the hack directory have to be basically revised. We need to spread more people and add more reviews, because you cannot possibly ping Jeff about everything. Jeff as a service.
Seven 55546.
I also ping Eric Feta. I know that he can approve there.
E2A avoid mandatory command line flags. This looks like a separate testing problem, area test. This seems like it overlaps.
We need to talk about, when you have time, we need to talk about the end-to-end refactor, because we sent some PRs and you have to look at them. I can actually send you the links later.
Well, if I'm assigned, the key for me for visibility is assignment.
Yes, you are assigned.
This one I'm not. Because when I get to it, Let's take a look here. That's not terrible.
I gave up on using Kubernetes because I have thousands of PRs at this point.
Well, there's no tool that solves this unless you create your own custom jiggery.
My fix for everything is email, and I used filters.
Yeah. That sounds terrible, Lubomir.
Yeah.
All right. Where was I on? That was already done. 755-393. Kubeadm check SC health member. This is the one we need to look through again. List bootstrap tokens in YAML and JSON objects.
Yeah, so this PR Ed Bartosz is trying to, he's on the call. He's trying to add an option to list more than one token. I mean, not list more than one token, but add the possibility to list the tokens in machine readable format. And I think that everybody agrees that this is a good option, except that we are figuring out how to properly process the outputs. And
wasn't there like two other, didn't we slam that one in at the end of cycle, which was meant to help solve this problem?
No, I don't think we have machine readable output yet.
Okay.
I'm just thinking, guys, that maybe it's not the best place, these list tokens. Maybe it should be moved somewhere else, like as a part of bigger thing. I mean, like to output as much information about the kubeadm and the cluster as possible, or something like that. But I don't know. I didn't find it.
So my idea about the machine readable output support in kubeadm is that we might end up with some sort of common mechanism to implement this, but at the same time, I think we should extend the existing commands with like the flag output in YAML and stuff like that. We shouldn't create new commands for the sake of machine readable output.
In my opinion, there are two problems. One is how we define the output. If we have to define a new API group in order to get the output version and so on. And second is how we apply the machine readable output. Because for command like token, it is easy. But for command like init, where we have all the printf functions spread across the code, is much more difficult.
So to the first point, you basically said that the API group, I don't think these machine readable objects should be an API group that we track. I mean, we should guarantee some sort of a case where we don't break everything. But I think that I don't think we should use GVKs in there.
Okay, let's take this to a root issue, because this is, I don't know if I actually closed the root issue that this originally stemmed from a long time ago, which I probably did, is that we wanted this behavior for a very, very long time. I don't see a root issue referenced here. But why don't we take this one to an issue, because we're actually out of time, and then we can discuss that for next time.
I think we already have a ticket, so I'm going to link
cross-reference. Yeah. Right. I'm going to make sure that I follow up afterwards with regards to the packaging discussion and take a look at that this afternoon.
All right. Thanks.
Right. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Adios.